Almost forgot to turn on my light there. Hey everybody, it's Gretchen. Hopefully you can actually hear me tonight. And I apologize for that echo. I had my other screen up to make sure things were actually working and forgot to mute that one. Oh, hi Linda. I'm glad you made it after all. Oh, good. Cheryl, I'm so glad. I did run a test a little while ago and it worked. So I was hoping for the best. Hopefully they figured out what the problem was and that won't happen again because that was a little frustrating. Cheryl, do you know if Lindsay is going to make it tonight? All right. Okay, so we will try this again. These are the... Oh, okay. No problem. So these are our Easter Spring Bunny cards, and we're going to start with the blue one. I started to make it last night when I tried to just record the video, but not only did the video I started recording, the recording just stopped on me. But when I tried to replay it, it won't replay properly. So obviously there were major problems at YouTube yesterday. So we'll see. Okay, so let me put that there so you can see it. Move everything out of the way. And we are going to use our glacier colored cardstock. We are now working with a mixture of Close to My Heart supplies and other supplies. So I'm using things I have on hand. The glacier cardstock is one of the Close to My Heart colors. So it is two-sided. It has two different color shades on it. And so we are going to score with the lighter side up because we want the lighter side to be the outside. So we're going to put the 11-inch side into the scoreboard and we're going to score at 5.5, which is the halfway point. And our cardstock is 4 inches wide. Now, I've said this before, but you may know that a standard invitation size card is usually 4.5 by 5, or 4.25 by 5.5, which is a quarter of a 8.5 by 11-inch sheet of paper. But since we're using 12 by 12 paper, we can get 3 across by making them 4 by 11. And for the most part, unless you have a really tight design, you never notice that 1/4 inch difference. So I'm going to go ahead and score on that, or fold on that score line. So, even though we have a million supplies, we like to be conservative. So it's nice to get 3 cards out of one piece of paper instead of only 2, and then you have a third piece that you don't know what to do with. So we are going to put Adhesive on our cream panel. The cream is just, it's the same on both sides, so it doesn't matter which side you put the adhesive on. And we're going to put that centered on our card, our folded card. And then we have another piece of glacier cardstock, and this has been embossed with our botanical embossing folder. Sorry, I was just looking for where I put the embossing folder so I could show you. So this is our botanical embossing folder. I put it through so that the embossed side was on the lighter side of the cardstock, intending that to be the right side. Although if you like the debossed design better, you could always use that as well. All right, and that is also going to go on the front of the card, centered. Got a little schmutz on my cutting board there. Okay, so there we go. All right, so now the pattern paper I used with these cards are not close to my heart. It's called, the brand is Die Cuts with a View. You can find them in craft stores like Joann's, Michael's, even Walmart. This one was called Magnolia Way. It was from several years ago, so I'm not sure if you'd still be able to find it, but I mean, it's a floral themed paper, so I'm sure we all have floral themed papers. So as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm lining up my card with a line on my cutting board because I want to put this a little less than an inch up from the bottom of the card. Now, it's not so critical where you place it. You can place it wherever you like it. I just want to let you know where I'm putting it. And if you don't have a cutting board like this, you could also use a ruler and place it that way, or you can just eyeball it, whatever works for you. Generally, when I'm creating the cards, I just eyeball them, and then when I'm creating them with you, I go and tell you what the measurements are, just so you know. So next we have a Hello Spring sentiment, and this was from a Close to My Heart set. One of the bunny sets from last year, if you picked that up. And I put that in the corner, and it's about 1/8 of an inch in from that embossed panel and 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom of the panel. So you've got several 1/8 inch wide borders here. You got the card, the cream panel, the embossed panel, and then finally you have your sentiment. All right, now we're going to work on the bunny. And you'll notice my bunny here is white because my cream bunny I put on the card I was starting to make in the video last night. And I only had a white one ready stamped to go. So here's is cream. And I'm going to color the inside of the ear with just some pale pink. And I'm using a colored pencil. And I'm coloring just very lightly just to give it a little blush. You could use a marker too if you had a pale color. I mean, it doesn't have to be really pale if you'd like a little more color, whatever you prefer. The only thing I wouldn't recommend using paints, because this is the regular water soluble, close to my heart ink. And if you get it too wet, the color will run. So you want more of a color fast coloring implement. All right. And then we are going to tie our bow onto our bunny. And to do this, what I did was I punched holes in the bunny's neck to thread the ribbon through. And right here on the line between the head and the neck is where I punched my holes. And if you could just use your hole punch, and I used an 1/8 inch hole punch. You could just use your hole punch to punch the holes, but sometimes when you're trying to punch with this, it's a little hard to see where you're punching. So I found that, and let me use a marker because you might be able to see that a little better. And I have a thick one here, but I'll make just a dot. You're not going to see it because you're punching it out. But I found it easier to make a little dot where you want to punch, and then you'll be more accurate with your punch. And I'll lift that up for you so you can see. You're going to go a little more than 1/8 of an inch apart. You don't want to get the holes too close, because if you punch them too close and there's not enough paper left between them, when you pull your ribbon to tie your bow, you could inadvertently rip that paper. So now that I have my dots, I don't know if you can see right there. See, I'm just centering that dot in the middle of my hole punch. And then you can see after you've punched the first one, if your dot this is fine. I'm not going to quite center it on that dot because then it would be too close, but I'm going to put the edge of my hole near that dot and then shift it a little bit upwards towards the bunny's ear, because like I said, I don't want to have them too close together. But it just gives you a little better idea of where you're punching, because when I punched that second hole right there, I couldn't see through the hole punch to see where that second hole is. So see, you can see that there's about 1/8 of an inch of paper still between those two holes. Now you could use a smaller hole. You could actually use a 16th hole punch. But when I did that, because that's what I tried first, I found that it was harder to get the ribbon through the hole. So if you had a threader or something that made it easier, that's fine. But I found that this was a little easier with the 1/8 inch. It is 1/8 inch wide ribbon. And as you can see on the card, the ribbon does cover up the holes. So it's not like anybody can see it after you're done here. And I'm just threading the ribbon through the two holes, down one, up the other. And then I'm centering the ends on either side. That's the back. You only have the little bit on the back. And then you can tie your knot. And I tried to give you a length long enough that you'd be able to tie it without too much struggle. I hope I gave you enough. This is just a ribbon that I've had for years that I picked up at like Michael's or something years ago. It's always nice when you find the perfect supply when you're working on something. You already have it. So there you go. I just tied a knot, and then I'm going to tie my loops. And when you make your, I'm just making sure that the ribbon isn't twisted when I do this. And when you do this, you're going to make your loops bigger than what you really want, because that's how you get it tight. And then you can go ahead. I've got my thumb on the knot, and I am pulling the ends to make the loops shorter. I did. All right, I'm redoing mine because I did get the one loop twisted. I did this much better last night when nobody was watching, of course. Maybe I didn't give you a long enough length. Okay, that's better. All right, so my loops are a little longer than what I'd want. I'm pulling the ends to be a little shorter, just tugging on those loops again to make sure everything is nice and secure. And then I can cut my ends to be shorter. There you go. Whoops. Now, if you're worried about that not coming undone, you can put like just a dot of glue that'll dry clear on there, or like fry check or something like that. But I did not do that on any of my sample cards, and I have carded them around a little bit, so I haven't had any problems, but it's up to you. I would suggest, if you're going to do that, wait until the card is all put together though here, so you're not handling it. All right, and then we're going to put our 3D foam tape on the back of our bunny. So I'm just cutting some pieces. And I'm going to put the first piece, I'm going to put right on the back of the ribbon, and then I know that ribbon kind of stays in place. And then I'm just putting some pieces. I want one more around the bunny. And I'm going to just take those off over the garbage can. And I'm going to pretty much center this guy on the card. So that he's centered left to right and somewhat top to bottom. Maybe a little higher towards the top, but you know, you want to, you want to overlap this lace strip, but be above the Hello Spring sentiment. I actually put him a little higher than I did on the sample card. Yep, he's not coming off, so I'm not going to move him, but it gives you an idea. And then I'm actually going to switch this card out now. Go back to the one I was working on last night. And then I didn't make another one. I ran out of time. But you have your sentiment that says, have a lovely Easter. And I gave that to you on an extra strip in case if you wanted to, you could use it or not. But I went ahead and just centered that on the inside of the card. Just used regular double-sided adhesive and put it on flat. Usually when I'm putting stuff on the inside of the card, I try to keep it flat. Okay. So now we're going to put on our flowers. And these flowers were punched out of two different Fiskars punches. They're punches I've had for a very long time. I use them for a lot. They're great. They're very handy Actually, one of them I may have even replaced. Oh no, I'm thinking of something else. Because the flowers are they're just nice. Like if you're making a card or something that you just need to fill up space, like here, it doesn't quite look finished. These little flowers are just perfect to add a finishing touch. So I'm going to use just a dot of glue in the center of each flower and add them around the bottom of the card here. And I've got the big blue one down first and then a small yellow one on top. Now, no matter how small a drop of glue you use on the small ones, there's likely to be some to leak out the sides. So just be careful to not get your fingers too sticky. But as long as you use a glue that dries clear. This is, the Scotch quick dry, but like a glossy accents would work too. That one's just a little shinier when it dries. All right, so these two, both it's the bigger and a small one on top of it, and then I'm just going to put an extra small one here. I think this card is the one I put the most flowers on. This is one of those shapes that I kind of wish I had on the Cricut so I could just like print out a million of them. But then they're so tiny, they probably wouldn't cut out that great on the Cricut. Probably maybe on the newer Cricuts, but my Cricut is an older style model. So, okay, so we've got 3 double layered flowers and 2 just small single layered little ones. And then we're going to put a sparkle in the center of each flower because, what would our card be without some sparkles? These, of course, have adhesive on them, but when I'm making cards, I do like to put an extra piece of glue to keep them secure, a little more secure on the card than just relying on the adhesive that comes on it. So, I'm going to grab my X-Acto knife to put these on with. Help pick. Well, it was supposed to help me, but there we go. And then just put one in the center of each flower. People have asked me about the pickup tools they sell, and the pickup tools, what they really are from is that from people who put gems on their nails, and that's how they use them. The trouble with those is that they're not going to pick up a gem that has adhesive. They're for gems that don't have adhesive. And I used to use those all the time before these became popular. And again, if you just put the dab of glue on it, it works fine. But they put the adhesive on these for us, which sometimes is great and sometimes not good enough. But anyway, I have one of those pickup tools. Oh, I think it's in my toolkit, my travel tool. My travel toolkit, which is in the basement. But it won't pick it up off the with the adhesive. It won't pick it up off the carrier sheet. So that's why I use my X-Acto knife. Although that's not always the smartest idea either. You got to be careful. My X-Acto knife right now has so much glue on the blade that it probably wouldn't cut me unless I really tried. But let's not try. All right, so there we go. We got our card. Trying to figure out which one has the inside. Done. And that's how it looks. Pretty easy to put together when you have all the supplies in front of you. Just takes a little extra time to do that embossing and punching. But that embossing just adds a little bit to it instead of just the solid panel, I think. And, you know, even though Close to My Heart isn't selling them anymore, there's a lot of them out there. All right. Oh, I'll leave that there in case you need it. And we're going to go on to the yellow one next. All right, and this color cardstock is called Honey Bunny. Again, it's a Close to My Heart color. So I'm just confirming here that this time we're going to use the darker side. So when we put our cardstock into our scoreboard, we're going to have the darker side facing up. But again, we're going to score at 5.5 inches. And then we can go ahead and fold and burnish on that score line. Right, so the first layer would be our large layer of floral paper. This paper is a little heavier and it is glossy. It's a cardstock weight, a heavy cardstock weight, I guess, because Close to My Heart always considered their paper cardstock weight, but you know, even their cardstock is 65 pounds. So the pattern paper I never thought was all that heavy. Fine for card making and scrapbooking, but this you could actually use as a card base because it's so heavy. The some of the other ones you can't, or it's not recommended because it would bend too easily. Okay, so our next layer is going to be our circle. So this circle, I embossed it with the same embossing folder, the botanical embossing folder. But then after I embossed it, I cut it out with a circle die. And that was from Spellbinders. But you could use a circle cutter or a circle die or trace a circle and cut it out by hand, whatever works for you. And as you can see, when I put it on, I don't put the whole circle on the card. We're going to overlap we're going to have some of the circle hanging off the edges of your card I'm just thinking here. So when you're putting adhesive, if this, you're looking at the back. Oh, there you can see it. I don't worry about getting the edge at the top or on the left side because those are going to hang off. If you have adhesive on them, it's fine. You're going to cut it off. But I'm just going to here at the bottom here, I didn't get quite close to the edge. So I'm going to just try to put a little more on there, and I'm just going to circle around the curve. And I mean, if you want to do that around the whole thing, it's fine. And I'm going to just, it's probably about 1/4 of an inch or so that's hanging off both the top and the left side of that card. So if I turn it over, you can see that overlap. And I'm going to trim it by turning it over because I can see that nice straight edge, and just take my scissors along the edge. Just be careful to not get too close to the fold up here because you don't want to cut your card. Then it won't fold anymore. And we're going to cut off, see, it's just about 1/4 of an inch. And that gets us in the corner. And I embossed them so the lighter side is showing, but again, it just depends on what side of the embossing you like better. And then we're going to use some hot pink glitter paper. This is a glitter paper I picked up again in Michael's, not sure the brand, but it is very popular glitter paper these days. Okay, I'm just looking, and it is, I put it about 1/2 inch up from the bottom of the card, and it is the same width as the floral paper, so I'm just centering it across the floral paper there. And then we're going to put our Hello Spring sentiment. And we're going to overlap the top of that glitter paper by about 1/2 inch on the right side of the card, about 1/8 of an inch in from the right edge of the floral paper. Again, it doesn't, exact measurements don't matter. Just put it where you find it pleasing. All right, and now again, I'm going to go to the inside of the card before I finish up here. And I have got my, just a strip of that same floral paper to carry the design from the outside to the inside. And I'm going to put that, it's the same width as the card, and I'm going to put it just below center. Let's see, let's give you a measurement here. It's just about 2 inches from the bottom of the card. And then we've got our Easter sentiment. Mine is stamped on both sides because I didn't do a good stamp on the one side. So covering that up with adhesive. And this I'm going to overlap the floral paper by 1/4 of an inch. And it is narrower than the width of the card. So you're going to center it left to right. And So it's about a 1/4 inch on the left, the right, and down, overlapping that floral strip. Okay. Now we are going to color our bunny's ears again. Just adding a little pink there. And now we're gonna tie the pink bow to his neck. So again, I'm gonna use my marker to make 2 dots. So probably the drawn dots are probably about a 1/4 inch apart, because then when you punch your holes, then you have a quarter, an 1/8 of an inch between them. So centering my dot in my hole punch. And yep. And again, with the other one. And I've got my 2 holes. And I will string my ribbon. I tend to curl the end of my ribbon. You can cut on a diagonal, or you could just curl it a little just to get it through that hole. Go down the bottom hole and up the top hole. See, it goes in much easier when it's an angled end. It goes in, but can I grab it? There we go. And pretty much center it. And tie your bow. And I've got big loops there, but I'm going to pull my ends to make my loops smaller. And then tug on those loops just to make sure the knot is nice and tight. And then trim off my ends. And there you go. Oh, good, child. Glad you like it. And I'm glad you typed something, because I was just going to ask somebody to type something to make sure you're still there. It is it's a little different color combination than you normally would see, but it's pretty, and it works so perfectly. It's not close to my heart pattern paper, but it works so perfectly with the close to my heart color honey butter. It's amazing. Okay, so now we're going to put foam tape on the back of our bunny. As you know, I was running out of foam tape, but I restocked, so I am good for a while. And even though I have that big roll, I still like to cut little pieces. And I did, again, put a piece right over the back of the ribbon to hold it in place. And just taking off the backing pieces. Oops. All right. And then I'm going to put him right in our circle. He's not quite centered because when you place him, you just want to make sure that his ear doesn't go above the fold of the card, because you don't want it to get bent when you're trying to put that card in an envelope. If you do get him too high, you would just have to use a bigger envelope so there's room. And then we're going to do more of our flowers here. And honestly, when I was picking cardstock colors for the flowers to punch out the flowers, I just went into my scrap bin, and I mean, the yellow is still the yellow. It's actually the same yellow that I used on the blue card, but I didn't worry about what kind of cardstock it was. I just kind of saw what I had and saw what would work. And I'm sure we all have a big scrap bin to work from at times. I was just putting on all three of my big flowers here. And then I'm going to put my alternate colored tiny flowers. The nice thing about these flowers is that they look dimensional, but they're, we're gluing them flat, so they don't add a lot of height to the envelope. I mean, you already get some height from the dimensional tape on the bunny, and then of course you're going to put sparkles on these, so that'll add height. But sometimes you buy some of the flowers that they sell in the craft stores, and they're really beautiful, but if they're two-dimensional, they're never going to go in an envelope. Then you can only use them for cards you're hand delivering, because they're not going to go through the mail unless you pay a lot of money for packaging them up in padded envelopes. I'm putting this flower needs a little more glue. Oh, I'm going to tell you, when you're gluing over the glitter paper, okay, you can see, usually I just put a dot, but I'm putting a little bit on each petal there, because, and I got my finger in my glue on the other flower, of course. Sorry, when I'm gluing down on top of the glitter paper, sometimes it doesn't, the glue doesn't hold as well. So I'm just putting a little more down and pressing it into place until it catches. And then I already had the glue on this flower and I put my finger right through it. So I'm just trying to clean that up a little bit. Okay. And I think I put a little too much glue in the middle of that flower for the sparkle. So I'm going to clean that up and add a new dot. Whoops. It's funny, no matter how careful you are, sometimes it just comes flowing out. Use my X-Acto knife. Just trying to clean some of the glue off of it and add a sparkle to the center of each flower. Oh, I forgot to tell you in the card, I don't know which envelope I put your sparkles in, but they're all in one envelope. If they weren't in that blue one, if you hadn't found it yet, search in one of the other envelopes. I try not to cut them apart too much because I don't want you to lose them. I try to put them in the first envelope of the first card we're working on, but sometimes I end up changing the order, so that doesn't always work. All right, so there is that card. All right. All right, next we're going to do the pink one. Oh, I'm finding my sparkles in the pink card, so that's probably where yours are too. All right, so this one's got a few extra pieces. And it's folded differently. It's a gatefold card. So it's still 11 inches wide. We're just going to do 2 score lines and 2 folds in them. But we want our base to be the 5.5 inches that it normally is. So we're going to do 2 3/4 on each side. Now this paper is not a card close to my heart cardstock. I ran out of bright pink, or the bright pink I had didn't quite match this paper. So this is actually, I believe, from Michael's. So it is the same on front and back. It doesn't matter which side is in your paper cutter. And like I said, we're going to score at 2 3/4 on each side. So it's at 2 3/4 and 8 1/4. Now, if you prefer, you could also just turn it around and do 2 3/4 from either side. It's the same thing. And then we're going to score or fold on each of those score lines. And they should come together in the center of your card. All right, so on the left panel, we're going to put this this floral, which is actually the same as we just used on the yellow card. It's just got a pink background and it has some added glitter. That was the other thing about this paper pack. Some of the papers had glitter on them. And this just gets centered on the left panel. And then on the right panel, we're going to put this light pink cardstock, which again, I believe is from Michael's. It's embossed with the embossing folder that's quatrefoil. This design is pretty easy to find in other brands of embossing folders. It's a quatrefoil is a pretty standard design. So again, you can use either side. I'm going to use the other side this time. I'm going to use the deboss side. So the kind of the framework of the design will be embossed, and and then the quatrefoil design will be sticking up, as opposed to this one where it's the reverse. But you can use whichever one you prefer. I will give you this little hint, helpful hint. When you are embossing cardstock, sometimes because you're changing the height of the paper in spots, sometimes the paper will shrink up a little one direction or the other. So if you cut your paper to the exact size before you emboss, sometimes it'll shrink up, especially if it's in a heavily embossed design, and your cardstock will no longer be quite the size you had originally cut it. So if you do want it to be exact, I suggest you put a slightly bigger piece through the embossing folder when you emboss, and then trim it to size after it's already embossed. All right, and then let's go ahead and put I'm going to just cover up that there for a minute so you can see. We're going to put our other two panels on the inside of this card. And we've got flowers, and this one is kind of a flourish design with butterflies in it. This one kind of looks like it could be like taken from a mosaic floor, tile floor. Put that on the left, and we'll put the butterflies on the right. And again, I gave you a strip that has "Have a Lovely Easter" stamped on it, and I'm going to put that right in the center of the center panel. So you can add it or not. All right, we could go back to the outside. And again, we have circles. And excuse me. We are going to layer our circles, and you can see I kind of messed up on my circle. I was cutting 2 circles at once, and I didn't notice that this piece of cardstock wasn't quite under the die the whole way. So I'm going to go ahead and use it, but I'm going to hide it under my sentiment here. So we want to put adhesive on the back of this bright pink embossed circle, but we don't want to put any too close to the bottom or too close to the right side when you're looking at the back of it. So not too close to the bottom, not too close to the right side. It only overlaps a little, so that's, I mean, unless you're really good at getting them really close to the side, you're probably not going to get it that close anyway, but I'm just telling you to be aware. And we're going to overlap it onto the paler pink circle, and we're kind of going to make it so that it's a moon, a crescent moon, and you're just going to get this sliver of pink around the left side. I don't think I got you. Don't worry. I'm not going to worry about it at this point. If you do have any adhesive overlapping, you can go ahead and rub it off with your finger. And I just overlapped here because the pink, the bright pink, I thought was too much on this background. It didn't pop from it. And the light pink doesn't pop off of this background. So I figured if I had both the bright pink and the light pink, I could stagger them and make it look better on both sides. All right, so now we're going to add our Hello Spring sentiment to it. Now this one you want to be careful because it is going to overlap and it's going to hang off into space. So you don't want any adhesive on this side. So when you turned it over, you don't want any adhesive on the left side of the cardstock. You just want on the right that's going to go onto the circle. So I only went over about halfway. See that? And I'm going to go ahead and place it on my circles near the top, near the right hand side. I am seeing a little bit of adhesive on the back there, so I just rub that off with my finger. That's a great thing about this ATG tape. You can just rub off the excess like that, and it usually comes off neatly. Okay, and now we're just going to put the whole thing onto our card. And again, it's only going to be adhered halfway because it's only adhered to this left panel about halfway. And then you can see the back of it. So when I turn it over, I want this, the top of this Hello Spring panel to be parallel horizontally. Like if it's parallel to one of my lines on my cutting board. All right. And then I'm going to just come just short of halfway. And then put in a couple of lines here. I'm going to try to get around the curve of my circle from halfway point to halfway point. You see that? And this is probably more adhesive than you actually need. You could probably do around the outside, just short of middle, and one in the between them. But now it's attached really well. And you're going to center it onto the card. And if you want to check on your adhesive status, you could just press down very lightly to make it stick and turn and see, oh, I got just a little bit at the top, which I know I can rub off, but I know that's there because I didn't get it on quite straight. If I put it on straight, it's not there. And then I can really rub it on, make sure it sticks. And now we can do our bunny. We're going to color in the ear. Bunnies, the inside of the bunny's ear is probably not this pink, but traditionally when we see something that's drawn, we always think of it being that color, don't we? Especially an Easter bunny. All right, and now I'm going to make my dots on the neck to punch out. Got my holes. And I've got my pink ribbon. Okay. And tie the bow. Just adjusting my bow here. Just remember to tighten it up a little bit so you have a tight knot. And then we're going to put foam tape on the back of it and place them centered on our circle. One over the back of the ribbon. I also try to position them at any area that might stick out a little bit, like the ears and the foot, just so it's a little more secure. Thanks, Cheryl. All right, and now there he is. And now we can put our flowers on. Usually when I store this upside down, the glue doesn't dry in it, but it did. There we go. I got one white big one in the top left corner, a big pink one in the bottom right, and a big white one next to it. And then the alternate colors of the smaller flowers on top of them. Make sure you press down a bit on the flowers so that the glue gets stuck and then it dries really securely. Sometimes you get a little too much glue and sometimes you don't get enough. I didn't get that flower quite. Gonna add a little extra glue because now I've peeled it up to it. There we go. Wasn't getting that flower, the smaller flower right centered on the white one. It's still not quite centered, but we're gonna go with it. And then we'll put a dot of glue in the center of each to add our sparkle. My glue's being finicky tonight. There we go. Now it's a little extra generous. I'm going to put that cover on this time. See if that does better. All right, and my X-Acto knife. And there we go. There is that card. All right, and now we've got one more card. This one is my favorite, not because necessarily the color, although, you know, I like the colors, but it's because of this paper with the magnolias. I love magnolias, so I love this paper. All right. So here we go. And this one has a little different fold on it too. Again, it is the cardstock is actually this time it is 12 inches. It is not 11 inches. It is 12-inch long cardstock. So I use the full length of the cardstock, and we're going to put the dark side facing us as we emboss. This is a close to my heart color, avocado. And we are going to score at 4.5 inches. And let me just confirm this. 10 inches. So again, our back panel is 5.5 inches wide. So if you do a different kind of fold like that, that's what you want to confirm, that your back panel is still 5.5 inches, so it fits in your invitation envelope. And I'm just folding on both of those score lines. And now you can see with the dark on the outside, the top panel is a little shorter. It doesn't come down as long as the back of the card, but then the bottom panel folds up and overlaps it. So we're going to put the magnolia paper on the outside of the top flap. I imagine those pink flowers on the other paper are supposed to be magnolias too. There are so many different types of magnolias, but these are more of the traditional ones I'm used to seeing, and I just love the white ones. And I try to go to Highland Park every year and see them because they're so beautiful. Okay, so for the bottom panel here, the front of it, again, I embossed the quatrefoil design, and you can see on the sample card, I used it, the embossing one way, and so on this one, I'm going to use it the other way, so the outline comes out. And the quatrefoils are sunken. It doesn't really matter on this one, both yellows work with it. So the light side versus the dark side. Um, I've got the dark side facing out, but it would look good with the light side too. So you don't have to worry about that if you like. But if you like one better than the other, pick whichever one you like better. Okay, and so for the inside, for the flaps, I picked this design, which if you hold it this way, it looks like that paper we used to learn to write our letters on when we were in like first grade. But I didn't really want it to look like that, so I turned it vertically. And now it looks a little more like a mattress ticking stripe, maybe. Or, just fun stripes. I don't know which the designer intended it to look. Don't know if it matters. So, of course, the smaller piece gets put on the bottom and the bigger piece gets put on the top. And there's no particular reason, but I just thought when you have a card like this one or the pink one we just did, where the flaps are a different size and it's kind of unique. It's not a a standard folding card. For some reason, these extra panels of paper on the flaps add a little fun to the design. Just like, I try to do different things on the inside just to make it a little more interesting. Of course, if you're going to write a message in there, it makes it a little more difficult. So, because I wouldn't really want to write on this glossy paper, but and then we've got our Have a Lovely Easter strip, which I am just going to center in the middle of that blank panel. I suppose if you were doing some kind of project, probably more of a scrapbooking page, and you had this paper, you could make it look like school paper with some of those awkwardly drawn letters of somebody just learning to write. That could be a cute design element. All right, so that's the inside of that one. And now we're just going to do our bunny and flowers. Oh, we have to do our sentiment first. So I'm going to put this in the bottom right corner. Again, I'm going to leave like 1/8 of an inch space between the right and bottom edges of the sentiment panel with the right and bottom edges of the quatrefoil embossed panel. And then we're going to do our bunny just like we did all the other bunnies. Color the inside of his ear. And then make our dots for our holes. I thought these cards would also look pretty with flowers or something. If you didn't want to make them into Easter cards, you wanted to make them more of a Mother's Day or a birthday or thank you or anything else, and you wanted it more generic than the bunny, I thought, the floral paper, a flower, would look nice as your main design element. I know Lindsay decided not to do the bunnies, so be interested to see what she ends up putting on the cards. All right, so we've got our light green ribbon this time. I just had all the right color ribbons. It was so nice. All right, tie my bow. And of course, you could also use the folding designs on these cards and then use a different kind of paper on them. It doesn't have to be a floral. It could be whatever occasion you're making a card for. Okay, and foam tape. Oops. Almost lost a piece of tape there. Oh, I goofed up there. I forgot. Sorry about that. I was in autopilot mode here. The bunny is only, the top half of the bunny is not going to be attached to anything. It's going to overhang here. So when you put your foam tape on, and I have to peel a couple pieces off, you don't want them on the top of the bunny here. You only want them, I'd say about the top third to top half. Should not have any foam tape on it. And you can see that my ribbon is showing a little bit. So even though on all the other cards I put a piece of foam tape right on over the back of that ribbon, in this case, I don't want it all the way up there. I want it just below that ribbon. And this one might be a little high too. Luckily, it didn't press. I peeled a little paper off, but I didn't press too hard on those that foam tape yet. So I was able to peel that back off. I'm just going to use these pieces since they're exposed now. I've got a little extra on the bottom that you don't really need that much, but it gives it a little more security. Since I cut all those pieces, sorry about that. Hopefully you hadn't quite caught up to me yet, or you caught my mistake before I did. And then what you can do is you can hold them over here and fold and close the thing and make sure that none of the foam tape is showing before you really press down and secure him on there. And see, it's really fun to have an overhang as long as you catch yourself before you put your adhesive on. I don't know if I've ever talked about it in the past, but there's a chemical that's called Undo. It's by the same company that makes Goo Gone. And this actually helps you if you've put adhesive on something and you have to, like if I had to take this paper off, if I had to take it off now, it would probably rip the paper. But if I put this chemical on, it actually renders the, it makes the adhesive no longer sticky while it is wet, and you can pull it off, and then actually as it dries, the adhesive gets sticky again. So that is kind of my emergency if you've done something wrong, but I try not to mess up that greatly during class. So, but just so you know, there are things out there to help us out. Okay. We will finish up quickly here by putting our flowers on. See if my glue is happier. This one I only have the one big one because you don't have a whole lot of room on the bottom flap here. And 3 little ones. And you can fit them in depending on how you put your bunny, how you put your sentiment. Squeeze them in however they fit for you. And then we could put our sparkles in the middle. They're sometimes more difficult to pick up than other times. And there we go. Which one did I put the greeting on the inside? And that is our last card for tonight. So thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for coming back. Sorry last night didn't work so well, but I'm glad the problems are fixed. And oh yeah, that'll be fun, Cheryl. Using different colors, different papers for Christmas cards. That's a really great idea. So the next class is the Hexie cards. I'm just grabbing a couple here. These have happy birthday greetings on the inside that you can use or not use. So there's 6 of these cards, all in the same color scheme and with the hexagons on them. So that is on tax day, April 15th. Hopefully you will have your taxes done by then. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, thank you for joining me and have a great night. And I will see you soon.